Hey there, Revit land. We're going to Chapter 13 for the University of Montana Fall Semester 2021. And we're going to start to learn how to create sheets and print. Chapter 13, get your file going, NER 13, and hand it in here in Moodle. Let's begin. So here is our starting point. Biggest key for this chapter and for this video is the most powerful feature of Revit right up there is its ability to create and organize drawing sheets quickly and dynamically. Now, while we can do that in AutoCAD, you're going to see quickly here how populating all the views we have previously made in our project browser over here become a very easy process to add to sheets or dependent views, which we're about to do. And they also are inextricably linked with how they look in this view and how they will look in the sheet coming up, and also the scale and all the view properties such as you see in the view control toolbar. Those are very key things to understand coming up. So we're going to start by populating some views, and we're going to make a new view. We're going to go to a new area in this chapter. Let's cascade this down. We're going to go to sheets, say new sheet. I'm going to pick the only one available to me, and there's many architectural sizes. There's A, B, C, D, E, and E1. E1 is a 30-inch by 42-inch sheet architecturally, structural plans, building plans. It's a pretty standard size. E size would be 36 by 48. D size, architectural D, be 24 by 36. That's a very common size as well. And they go down from that as you go up in the alphabet. So we'll just take that as our starting point. And since it's the only one available, that makes it easy. We're going to say, okay, it starts our sheet, our default AutoCAD title block here, as we can see. And from that point, it wants us to click grid guide, which isn't available here. Kind of a bummer. So if I go to the view tab though, there it is. It's a little confusing how to get here in the book here, so just bear with me. And we'll say choose existing. That looks great. Only one available at the time. It says change it. It didn't give us a chance to, unless I missaw something. We'll say grid guide. It's okay. No, it just appears. No options up here. Now to select it, I usually just go like this. You have your grid guide. You can pull it out different directions. We don't need to, so we're just going to select it. It's saying you can change the spatialness of the grid interior, basically. And they're at 3 inches. So see what it looks like at 1 inch. They're tighter, a little 3 inches. This is going to help us lay out our sheets quickly, relatively precise, and we're going to see how Revit views align really well with each other. So we'll keep moving on to page 633. Got through that part in the grid guide. Let's go back up to our architectural floor plans up here in the project browser. And we're going to start with, looks like to be in book, level 1 floor plan west. So let's drag that, hold it, bring it over and release. And it didn't respond so quickly there, but my view is about ready to populate. So I left click held, drug, kept holding, and left click again to establish it. Let's just set it right about here. Give it a second. It's going to populate the sheet. You can still move it. So I pick it, still hit move here and move the view. You can just pick it like this and move it. And by default on your title, there's grips on this as well. So you got to select your black view first and you get your grips here, which is kind of nice. You can cascade these down. We're going to get more into the views later. They're essentially a lot like viewports in AutoCAD. They're dynamic. They're a lot more responsive than AutoCAD ones and automatic. Everything you see in this view as it resides here shows here by default. Zoomed into the right scale, its symbology is what we want to start as it is in this view. So that's a big difference between AutoCAD. It's a little more dynamic that way, quickly to place views. So we're going to start in the next section of this chapter on 634 into sheet organization. And let's cascade this down. Let's cascade all that down in architectural and go to sheets again. And we have our first sheet we just made here, right? And we're going to right click and rename it. We'll just hit OK. Actually, I have that wrong. The name is there. Sheet number is A101, very standard nomenclature with the architect A first, mechanical plans a lot of times M, civil C, and structural a lot of times S, electrical E, so on and so forth. We're going to create another sheet. I got to make sure I'm on the right view. Go up to sheets, create a new sheet. We're just going to make the second sheet. I was just making sure I didn't do it in the wrong spot. Select the only title block. Our next sheet's made here. We'll rename it. It's A102 for now, okay? It already should be that, very likely. We're going to do the similar thing to the previous sheet. And we're going to take this level 1 floor plan sheet. Actually, let's turn the grid on first as well on this sheet. 3-inch grid. Oh, I didn't quite grab it. Try again. Left data click, hold, bring it out here, release. It's taken a minute on my PC. It was a little faster before. Let's just set it here for now. We can quickly see as it populates, and our match line came in, which is great. And our sheet reference, it's referencing the other sheet, which we made in the last chapter was just a blank, blank, blank. Now that we're making sheets, it says I'm going to view 1 in sheet A101, which is right here. Sheet A101, view 1 right here. Sheet A101 right here. So those texts we added, I believe in chapter 12 had some significance. They're starting to play a part here with the match line saying, hey, which sheet and view does this correspond to on this side of the match line? That's where we left off in chapter 12. So they have a purpose now that we see that. All right, continuing on, I'm going to rename this view. Did it again, but I'll just hit copy paste. Call this A102. Sheet name and the sheet number together here. We're gonna make yet another one, new sheet. Same title block is fine. Okay. But before we do that, it wants us to change a couple things here. So we can do it in this new sheet. We would have done it in this sheet if I would have followed order. Sheet 102. I'll double click. In this case, project name, anything you select, as we know, in blue is typically editable. And it should not mask the text, but not even cascade it. Spacebar, some people call it, it formats the text for its size. As you can see, the size is from here to here, so it stacks the text for us. And just to be certain, I misnamed that. It's East Wing. Here's a sheet going back to page 637. Let's go to it. Let's rename it. Or rather, renumber it first this time. 201. We're going to call it enlarge plans, kind of generic. As we go along, know what we want. Let's add in the grid guide. Same again. We're going to add 3 different views this time: typical elevator shaft, typical men's lavatory, and typical women's lavatory. So let's start with this one. And let's just populate them like the picture on 638. Got it right about here. As you see, when I populate these, they're going to line up together reasonably well. Drag and hold. And see my alignment dotted lines come in, which is really nice in Revit. It quickly snaps and has a smart sensitivity to that. And the last one, the women's lavatory. Right about here is good enough. Doesn't have to be perfect. So we got those placed. We did multiple sheets. Doesn't want us to do anything crazy else. You know, when I'm moving these around, that's where these grid lines are kind of handy. They just kind of keep you spatially aware. Kind of if you're a photographer, you might have a 9-part square like that. You try to put a photo subject in certain parts of it. It helps you center things. It also helps you line things up in views. But a lot of that in Revit is done for you. When you move things around, they automatically want to do that by default, see? So I'll hit Control Z to undo that. And we also, when we changed our no experience required, okay, go to different sheet. That's already dynamic. Oh, my mistake. Turn this one off. I'm in different sheets here on top. It filled that out everywhere in the project name. Back to A201. We're going to make another sheet. Cascade that down. New sheets, same title block. Hit OK. Let's rename it 301. Call it building sections. We're going to find a few different things here. So there's a little bit of a mistake on one of the views we add. Actually, this isn't the right one. It'll be a little later. I jumped ahead of myself. So let's go to our section views in the architectural tab. But before we do that, let's turn our grid on. Our guide grid. Let's cascade some things down. We're going to start with the East Corridor section. Then we're going to do the section at West Training. And then we're going to do the West Corridor section. And then we're going to do the West Wing wall. So probably doesn't really matter what order you do them in, honestly. I'll just try to do them in order for you. Start with this one, bring this in the lower left. Helps make the book easier to follow with. Section at West Training. Bring that over to the right of that last view. See how they want to line up if we get them close. See that? Click here. Drag it to the upper left corner. Wants to line up in this dimension as well. West wing, south wall section is the last one. Hold drag, left click, drag. Populate that there. Hit escape. Our alignment lines made that really easy. So they wanted to align with each other naturally. Let's try to modify some viewports. But before I go there, notice how, for example, the west wing south wall section has a certain scale of annotation, has a certain style of view in the view control toolbar and other places. So if I went to this section here by double clicking it, and I changed this, say, to realistic and a different scale, not the same one, smaller, I went back to the sheet, it'll correspond. So it doubled in size because the scale doubled in size. So I'm going to hit Control Y to redo. I'm going to half the size. I went to 1/4 of an inch equals 1 inch. Well, I wanted to go back to 1/8 of an inch equals 1 inch. I'm going to hit Control Z. Just showing you the power of that. I'm going to leave it like that too to remind you of that. We're going to modify some viewports next. So very similar to AutoCAD, viewports are dynamic, showing what we want, say between a model space in AutoCAD and our paper space. This is kind of like our paper space in Revit, and our model spaces are all over. We have several, and our whole model merges them all together, but it's a lot different in the way that any view, anything you change in the original view, like I just did here, is reflected in this view initially. So AutoCAD's not quite that integrated in its views between each other, between different spaces as Revit is. So we'll continue on this sheet, and we're going to start with this view. Select it, right click, and we're going to activate it. So we're going to bounce in and out. Another thing similar to AutoCAD, you can be active in model space through a viewport, which is in a paper space type setting. In this case, we're calling these sheets. We're going to be active in the model through the sheet, or you can go to the model in the view and edit it, and it'll change in the sheet. So back and forth, right? But we have to activate it first. So we're going to do that to have that kind of editing ability here. So with this view activated, we can work just as we opened it from the project browser. Like I said, one thing I'm going to change is I'm going to turn off the crop view, crop region. So that turns off visually, the outer crop. Remember, there's a crop region in the model, and there's an annotation crop. I don't have those right here, but you can turn them on and off as well here as well. Properties, but you have to have it selected and activated. So let's grab it. We'll hit deactivate just to show that. Okay. So I actually have live control of the section view as well. In this case, let me turn back on the crop for now, because I want to do a few edits. In this case, let's move this up, jumped ahead of myself just a little bit, down to see the footing. Just say I move it around wherever. We're not going to mess much with breaking the view, but that's what that does. Anyway, I still have it in realistic mode. I'll leave it that way. Now we can see more. Leave that crop region on. I did the opposite. I turned it off before I needed to. I'm going to turn it back off. The view control toolbar. And we're all done here. So I'm going to right click over it and say deactivate view. This view is no longer being worked on in the model within this sheet. So let's go on and select this view in the sheet. We're going to activate it. Wants us just to crop it down so you can see the footing and the foundation. And that's it. Hide it. Do the same. Deactivate the view. Grab this one again. Saying we can move the whole viewport just by hovering over it. You see your universal forward direction symbol. You can also move this separate and then move them together. I'll hit Control Z a couple times to undo your best buddy. It's back again. It's easy enough to, I went one too far, deactivate that view again. In this case, I don't know. Let's just move it down a little bit. We moved it independently as well, which you would call as the title. This is a title of a view, okay? Let's make another sheet, detail sheet, our first one. And the bigger the plan set and building and complexity, you're gonna have way more of these detail sheets. They're very common. The bigger, more complex the building gets, you're gonna get a lot more of these. Continue on, say okay. So I'll turn on guide grid again. And let's find some views. Let's rename it first. The details, simple as that. So it starts on page 644, kind of confusing. It says we want to go to the sections wall section part of the project browser. We're looking for an item. What do they call it? Corridor entry section. This is really what they're asking for. They have it mislabeled several times until we name it later. Several steps at the end of page 645. So this is the view. Click it, drag over. It's going to be a tall view. Release. Hover it around. That looks good. Boom. What does it want us to do first? It wants us to click it, activate it, take the clip boundary, move it to the right. This is a little confusing knowing where it's going to show. To the right, so you can see this section view annotation, which is important for this view. that we want it to show. Literally would guide us to this section view and others. So let's turn those off. Make sure that shows. It helps correspond sheets. It's how we can flow between drawings, details, sections, elevation views, floor plans, everything. They're all inexplicably linked that way through annotations. We're going to add two more. What was this one? This one had a slightly off naming as well. Corridor entry section. It was this one. So it doesn't really have this call out. It shouldn't in the book the way it says, but in your blank NER 13 file, it will. Grab this view, drag it. It's gonna be a little smaller. Release. I'll zoom out while it's thinking. It's taking a while. I probably didn't have it. Let's try this one. Oh, good learning lesson. Go in here. You got to deactivate the view first. So it wasn't letting me bring any new views in. I deactivated it. Let's go back to corridor entry section. Left data, click, hold, drag, release. Let's put it. Doesn't have to be perfect. This is good enough right here. Should look something like this, like the picture on 643. Our last section view of a wall, or building section, I should say, is the roof taper section. Drag, click, drag, release, move, and hover it so you get the alignment right here. Escape twice. Entry section. It's really wanting us to change this. But it doesn't say what. Anyway, let's move on to viewport properties on 645. Go back here, make sure you're here, which we already are. Let's click this view. And it's selected. We're gonna have some options for the viewport here. It's trying to get us to change one thing. We're gonna scroll down to the title on sheet, which is right here. And we're gonna call it something different. It's views this, but on the title sheet, this annotation, we don't want them to correspond. Let's say they want to be different things in this case. We're just going to call it change it there, it updates here. Also wants us to edit the type. Just saying we're not literally doing anything here. We can change the type, the title. In this case, we're not worried about that. It just wants us to go there. Kind of pointless, but we select a viewport, the name of the title number will turn blue. This means you can change the values on the sheet. Okay, so that's our next part, is adding revisions to a sheet. That's just a tip for it. So we're gonna add revision bubbles. This is a new step. So I'm gonna go to sheet A101 to our west level 1 floor plan. And we're going to go to the Annotate tab. Looking for the Revision Cloud button, which is a new command for us. Click it. We're in sketch mode now. You can tell by the draw panel and the finish and cancel, which is a new thing for us, but sketch mode isn't. So I'm just going to use lines. You could totally use a rectangle. Lines could maybe get a little more surgical to place this, I don't know, exactly where I wanted. Escape once. Finish edit mode next. Page 648. I'm going to continue on and go to the Annotate tab, which I'm, I guess, already in. And a command we haven't used in a while to tag by category. We're going to attach a tag to an element based on its given category. Options come up here. We're not going to mess with many of those by the looks of it. No, we're just going to pick the Revision Cloud because it's the only one. We can, the universal move symbol, as you can see, and a grip. Getting used to using those when you see them by this point, I'm sure. Blue means it's editable. And it comes up here in the title block. Populates only on this title block of this sheet, not other sheets necessarily. So if you don't have it loaded, you'll have to load it per the instructions on page 648, saying yes to and going, finding it in your C drive. Of course, going to insert, load family, annotations, yada, 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 wherever it says. I believe it's right here. It's not loaded already. We'll hit cancel because we already had it. We're going to do yet another new command. We're going to go to the View tab, back to it. And that's for later. We're going to go to the Revisions button here. Specifies revisions information for the project overall. We're going to add a few for the overall project. They're both numeric. I'm just going to add a total bogus date here, maybe just today. That was the right one. A lot of plan sets like to get added in all caps. Make sure numbering per project selected, hit add. Just copy paste this. Let's call it 2022. And let's Control A, Control V. That's all we're going to do for now. This is indeed still selected. We'll hit OK. Just populating things in the title block, and the project, and the sheet, and revisions. Now I'm going to go to the project browser and go into this sheet, building sections, back to it. Back to the Annotate tab here. A little confusing sometimes, this revision and view revisions. This is adding information to the revisions, so they work hand in hand that way. Annotate, making the revision first. I'm going to do a little rectangle on this one because I want to, first of all, that's probably good enough. It says, make sure this is selected. So let's go back a step. Back one more. I'm already in the command. Okay, I'm in the command. I almost forgot. Still in the Revision Cloud command. Yeah, I don't have any options up here. I'm needing it to be pertinent. That's fine. I thought I was for a second. Click it, hit escape, finish edit. saying make sure this is selected for now, which it was, or in the properties of this revision cloud. It has its own properties like many things in Revit, right? We're getting used to that too. By selecting the Revit cloud, we can edit those things. But for now, we're going to go back to the Annotate tab and take by category. Select this cloud. This one's on 2 now. And you see it only populates this revision, named what we did prior. Remember, we made that on page 649. And that was back in the View tab. Excuse me. The revisions right here. This is where we're starting to add them. We're going to add a little bit of project information, easy enough. It's a new area as well. The Manage tab, project information here, overall project information. And I'm not really going to follow any of the rules for this, just because I'm just going to wing it. Let's just give it a date. Oh, just fill these in to see how they change. This one, you actually got to click the ellipsis ... I'm going to call it None Ya Biz Way. Fine. Some random number. Okay. Populate some of that in our CAD title block. A lot of title blocks work hand in hand dynamically like that with attributes. Also date here, the scale. Like I said, anything you pick is editable for the most part, not always. No, I didn't want to go edit that. Just showing you how those populated. We'll continue on to generate a cover sheet. This is kind of odd how they do this. One of the odd parts of the chapter. We're just going to kind of make a blank one. But first, we're going to make a little sheet list, which is a list of all of our sheets we've been making so far, and it makes a little Excel type format, dynamic. So, View tab, this is a new command. We're going to go to Sheet, Schedules, Sheet List. In this case, we'll do more of these in chapter 16, but we're going to go down to Sheet Number, Sheet Name. Several options to pick here from Sheets, not the project information. Other stuff, we'll go to this tab later. Down, sheet number, over. Sheet name, over. And this is a little confusing. It tells you to go here on page 654, but it doesn't really show you a picture, so this is where the tab is. By default, these are tabs in custom user interfaces. That's what a tab looks like. So we'll go to sheet number sort by ascending. That will control the order they come in as we build this. You'll see in a sec. We just made the schedule and it populated here in a project browser. So it looks kind of like a basic Excel thing right now. We're going to continue on to make a new title block to now send it on. It's going to be pretty blank. So it says go to blue tab, file right here, the new title block. Let's click this one. These are our sizes. Remember I was talking about, that's an A size, arc A, 11 by 8.5, 8.5 by 11, arc B, 11 by 17, arc C, 18 by 24. I always say them the opposite of that order. Arc D, 24 by 36, arc E, 30 by 42 inches, and an E would be 36 by 48, like I said before. Pick this same one again, open. Got a whole different textual ribbon coming up here. Options for building out this title block. We're going to pick a label instead of text, a little more dynamic. Edit type, showing you can make different types of labels here. Gets really fancy. We'll hit duplicate. Title, okay. We're going to call the text size 1 inch. It is Arial indeed, okay. We're going to click bold. Different options there. Width factor makes it fatter in width or narrower in short, basically. Okay. And alignment, let's do middle align and align center, vertically and horizontally. Let's just place it upper center somewhere right here. You got your project, the edit label thing came on. We're going to add some dynamic stuff here. In the first one, let's see, project name. Say go over. Okay. You can pull the grips. So the text cascades or wraps. That's the word I was looking for. Text wrapping. It moves with the grips. Select out there. This will be important later to pull it out here when we name it long. We don't have to come back in here and edit it again. Go back here, application button, it's a little vague. This is what it means up here. Save as family. And this is where I do want to save it in my long file stem for this class. Pretty exciting. I'm just going to call it title sheet. I want to save it here with my YouTube video performance. Saving the Autodesk Revit family file right here. Save. Say, give it a second. And we're going to say load into project at the moment. We just loaded what we made into the project. If you have more than one project open, it'll ask you which project do you want to load the sheet into. We only had one in this case, so keep that in mind. Let's do one more, getting this cover sheet going, say new sheets. In this case, it's here. We just made it, family. Click OK this time. We're starting with this brand new basic sheet, nothing fancy about it. We just made it. So, does it want us to rename that first? No, not yet. We're going to do a new command here. We're going to go to project browser sheet list. We're going to go to the schedule we just made. We populated basically. I'm going to drag and hold and bring it over. Release, set it there. They want to do this later. I'm just going to do it now. We'll edit more of this later. That was just the next step anyway. So this sheet cascaded down here to a 402 unnamed. We're going to change that. All caps. Standard, a lot of engineering drawings. That's in there right now. A lot of times you don't want that actual cover sheet on itself like this, so we're going to take it out. It's kind of a simple little thing. So actually, where is that part? Most cases, actual cover sheet So I'm in the cover sheet. I'm looking at the properties. Oh, there it is. A little tricky. I'll take it out of the sheet list here. So I'm in the cover sheet. See, it's a sheet. You can see what sheet it is here. This is where they were getting after right there. See, it removed itself. The sheet, so it didn't circular reference itself to this sheet. Last thing, we're going to print from Revit. And it's not going to be too straightforward. I'll get you through the settings. It's also a lot like AutoCAD, but way more efficient, I would say, and less options to really screw you up, but very similar interface to AutoCAD or Civil 3D. So blue file tab or this tab up here, typical thing, print, or you can just hit Control+P, same spot. We had a lot of troubles getting this to print at the end to a PDF. This book doesn't have us choose that. This is my home printer. And these other printers are installed on my C drive. You'll a lot of times have default printers like these, bloatware, Adobe PDF, but we won't worry about that right now. We'll just select the best one you have. And if it doesn't work for you, I would start with some Adobe PDF Writer. Like this one probably will not work. And I'll show you why. Unless you pick a size that's tiny. It does have some ANSI D. This is one of the more confusing parts of the chapter if you haven't printed a lot, but I've printed a lot in industry, so it's a little easier for me. Okay, it does have that. The printer in the computer lab didn't have all these options, so we could try that. I would either try an Adobe PDF type printer or a PDF type writer or OneNote. It'll send it to OneNote online, link it up. I got this little tiny printer in my home office for small papers, but I'm going to try PDF Report Writer this time because I think I struck out with Adobe PDF first. Then if that fails, we'll just get through these settings at least and talk about them. Print range. Let's choose selected views and sheets. Now we're going to get a little deeper into that. Really hone in on the picture on page 661. And I don't want to mess with any of these settings here. I don't like what they chose here just to do one file. I like, let's say I do many sheets. I want them to print in one file, one PDF type file. I'm going to choose this. I'm going to say no to the book on that one. I'm also going to say, where do I want this to print? I'm going to say desktop for now and hit save. Leave this stuff. Let's start here. We're going to save something here. We're going to save something here. It's going to show here. It's going to show here. This is saying, what do we want to print? I'm going to say check none. Check none. Okay, it did. We don't want any of the sheets or views. All the views in this entire model. It's like a bunch of model spaces of AutoCAD, right? We just want the sheets. Turn the views off. I'll say check all. I'm going to save this print job. Let's say you have hundreds of sheets. You just want to print their electrical. You might save that as electrical, or you might save it as whatever you want. This is a pretty small plan set, maybe not as essential, but this is just to get a point across. Call it all sheets in this set. Hit OK. I'll hit OK. You can see that saved there. That means I have that loaded. Now, let's go into the settings in the setup area, and we'll get a little deeper into page 662. And we're going to copy most of the settings we see on page 663. We get landscape. Let's try to find, they probably don't have a 30. We can print to this large size. This is even bigger than E1. So you're probably gonna have a lot of trouble finding E1 printers in some of these weird PDF print configuration files, basically is what I'm saying, if that makes any sense. So we can do one of two things. We can say print to something bigger, which I know is an E size sheet, and zoom to 100%. This is good here. This is one of the key settings. Zoom to exactly its size. We want to center it. I'm going to turn that on. It's already on. Hide unreferenced view tags, and we're going to hide scope boxes and hide crop boundaries. Those are all on. We're going to change this to black lines, which is monochrome, black and white. Simple. Just like, yeah, I won't even go there. Simple. Grayscale is shades of gray, like most of life, and color is color. So I like how it has this. AutoCAD makes this part super complex, way harder than it needs to be. So let's go to black and white. I'm just gonna put this on medium. I know it doesn't say anything to do this, but just to maybe speed the print up, that's fine. It doesn't say anything about that. I don't think this setting does much. So we're all good here. Try PDF Report Writer first. We're gonna save this print setup. Very similar to AutoCAD here. Say Aaron E-size. This is E-size regular. It's going to be bigger than E1 sheet. Okay. And now the moment of truth. Let's see if it prints. We have our print page setup configured. We have the sheets we want to print configured here, and how we want to print them here. Hit OK. Looks like it's working in my case. I don't want to append it to anything else. This is a dialog box just for PDF Report Writer. Just want to say this is fine. Give it a minute. It didn't work. Awesome. I'm going to hit Control+P. Try one more thing. I'm going to change this to, let's do Adobe PDF real quick. Let's change the sheets. Check none. Let's just print one. This part isn't that big a deal. I'm just seeing if you can successfully, print one sheet. Adobe PDF it's a little more straightforward lettering. This is the hardest part, is getting a paper that'll work and a plotter that actually works, because we haven't done this. Set this up. We'll do Arch E1. Everything's the same as previous. Hit OK. This is actually something you'll probably do at a job a lot. Hit OK. I have all kinds of problems with Adobe Acrobat. Awesome. You're worthless, Adobe. I'm going to hit Control+P one last time. I could print my little desktop. Let's do OneNote. Actually, yeah, we'll do OneNote on the desktop. Let's just see if it goes to anything. And our options are probably going to be limited in settings. For the size, yes, they are. Almost nothing in size. Let's just do a letter size. And we're going to say fit to page. This is taking our huge size E1 and cramming it to a tiny letter size. This is just to get this through. Hit OK. So yes. Whatever, this is fine. And let's select, check none. Turn off the views. Let's do them all. See if it works once. So yes. Hold on, bear with me. It's the same thing. Forget it. I'm not going to do that this time. I'm going to hit OK. Okay. If this doesn't work, you get the picture of all the settings. I just want to show you a successful print. So, okay, OneNote can't print right now while I'm in it. It's going to use raster printing rather than vector, but at least something's happening. It's thinking down there is where you can see. It's probably just going to print some kind of weird OneNote format, like an image file. Usually your Adobe PDF will work. I'm kind of surprised it didn't. So I printed it here to OneNote. I printed one page. Let's pretend this is a PDF, just for fun's sake, because none of my PDF stuff was working. So last time, just turn the sheets on, check all, yeah, okay. I'm gonna save it again, test one, okay. Interesting, this one does not even allow me to do multiple sheets, it's just that one. Go to Windows 10, same thing. Adobe PDF, PDF Report Writer, junk. Anyway, that is the end of the chapter. And I was successfully able to print one sheet with my limited printing ability. I could print a small letter size like this to my little plotter, but you couldn't see it on my screen. So that's the end of chapter 13.